Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Tony Dudzik, Pick Guardian.
Billy Spitfire Unlimited.
Yes. Hey, everybody, it's me, Todd Novak. Welcome to the Guitar Knobs podcast. We're thrilled to death that you're listening to our show. Super fun times. We got Billy back in the studio. Very excited about that. Back from Costa Rica. No, Puerto Rico.
Yeah,
my bad.
Thank you. That's all right.
Costa
Rico.
Yeah, Costa Rico.
The other Rico.
And calling from another coast that is not near us right now is this person on the line. Who are you on the line?
I'm Matt from Wren And Cuff.
Matt from Wren And Cuff. Second time. It's been a long time since you've been on.
Hi,
Tony,
Matt.
while listening, is going to pull up exactly what episode that was, because that was a really great episode, and I would love for people to get the chance to hear that one. Matt, we're happy to have you back again. Lots to talk about.
Yeah. I'm always up for a podcast, and it seems like I end up doing one or two a year, so I don't do them very often. But yeah,
excellent.
Excited to be here. I like you guys. So.
Well, I appreciate that. It would be a real slog if you did.
Like I hate you guys, but what do you want to do when you're done?
Yes. I need to sell some pedals, but I hate you.
Oh, it's the Guitar Knobs again. God, let me be.
Yeah, and for everybody out there that's been on the show that just shot up their hand, put it back down. All right. Well,
I'm just curious. What number will this be?
This is going to be number 373.
That's my address.
It's a lot.
And interestingly enough, Matt was on episode number 153.
Ooh.
And it shows here from December of 2019.
Golly sakes. Can we, what a different world that was.
Wow.
Yeah, every 200 episodes you can have me on.
Done. You think I'm kidding?
It'll
happen
about
again.
The old technology.
Yes.
Yeah, remember the old days when you had electricity?
Yes.
You know what's funny is I think just like I did today, I think I had little technical problems in the beginning on that one too. So nothing's changed.
Oh.
Everything's changed and nothing's changed.
It's possible. It happens. But you know what? There's not any technical problems is with your pedals. Where can people go see the things that you do?
Our website, of course, wrenandcuff.com and all the usual places. We're on Instagram. Have a YouTube channel, but I tend to rely more on other people's videos than what we do on there. But doing a little more active stuff on there. I'm getting a little Instagram burned out, so I'm trying to lean into that a little more. But
it's easy to do that.
Yeah, it's hard with their algorithm. It just wants you to constantly feed it short videos and stuff, and it's I don't mind that, but it gets to. I like to leave little gaps sometimes. Yeah. So I was doing the thing where you post every day, and then I just realized at a certain point I'm like, I don't know, people that I follow that post every single day, I don't want to watch as much. I'd rather watch the ones that post something every few days or every once in a while and it's something cool.
Yep.
Then I'm more likely to keep following them. So I don't know. I thought maybe
let's change that algorithm ourselves, shall we?
Yeah.
By not doing that. They just say, well, if you want to be successful, do that. And everybody does it.
Yeah, and I found I was just posting stuff to post it, and I was like, I don't really. So, anyways, we all know that discussion, but all the usual places.
Well, the first time you were on, Matt, we talked an awful lot about. Actually, we went through a lot of your pedals, and I believe at that time you had just released your custom shop.
Yeah.
Which is a really cool thing.
Yeah, that was when my son was 15 and helped me build that whole thing with the thing. So and it's still going strong.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, we are going to talk about some other stuff. We're going to get into some sounds that you were making, pedals and stuff. But we also we're going to focus on something that actually Matt came to us with this idea of why don't you sum it up, Matt?
Oh, well, I'm sure there's new listeners and people that don't know me and all that, of course, but I've done, more than a few podcasts now and just basically told what we're all about and everything, which is, enjoyable, and I love that. But I don't know, I thought maybe people that had already heard me on a couple podcasts might want to hear, a little, rather than just the story and why I do what I do and all that, just maybe give some experience and tips about using fuzz and stuff like that, since, I'm so entrenched in that world, and, I think I'm pretty decent at it. And, some things that might help people that, know the sound that they want but can't quite get it, or are confused by some things. And so I just approached you guys and said, hey, why don't I throw a little bit of that in there? And, I think it'd be fun and useful, hopefully, to people.
Well,
that's exactly the kind of help I need, right?
As much as I love just yammering on about me, but
that's different than you told us, Matt, because when you talked to me, you said we were going to read from your book, Famous Inns of Saskatchewan.
No, it's more of a manifesto than a book.
Oh. Okay, well, I'm glad. I mean, I would have had you on for that anyways, but I'd much rather talk about the fuzz pedals. So with that, we have a couple of announcements we're going to get through real quick. Number one. After this show, we're going to give away the first of, I think, 2. Maybe we'll squeeze out. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. 2 of the Les Paul 70 Years books.
Yes. Who's that by?
Julien Bitton.
Oh la la.
Yes. So he was our recent guest, the episode right before this, and we had a great time with him. And we like the book so much, and it's affordable enough, and we said we're going to give 2 more of them. We've already given away 2. We're going to give 2 more. So there's going to be another one after this week.
By my count, that's 4.
It will be. It will be 4. All right. Also, I want to mention that coming up on August 10th.
That's not too far away.
It is not too far away. Is the Sweetwater Gear Fest.
Get out of here. Really?
Yeah, and I know that there's going to be a couple listeners there, and I think, we should probably try to go to that.
Yeah.
What do you think, Tanya?
You going to take this show on the road? We're going to put this in the van?
No.
Just like Sweetwater did?
By this, if you mean Tony, then yes.
Oh, you're going to put me in the van down by the river.
Yeah, but I think that'd be... So, hey, listeners out there, get to that if you can.
Yeah,
How about that?
I've heard it's spectacular.
Yeah. I've never been, but I've heard good things.
I've never been either.
So that's it for the announcements, everybody. Oh, and also there's going to be we've teased out that we've got some more giveaways. We injected the books into our normal flight pattern of some giveaways. So
yes.
I just want to make them relevant to the last episode. So we got the books first, but there's going to be other stuff after.
Like what?
I can't get into it right now. Anyways, let's find out what's going on in our music worlds this week. Tanya Bolonsky.
Yes, Todd.
What's going on with you?
Well, an episode or 2 ago, we were talking about the Beatles Hootenanny 12-string guitar that recently sold for about $2.9 million. So I got my most recent Vintage Guitar magazine, which has Dwayne Eddy on the cover. And there's a really outstanding article on it. Now, this came out before it hadn't hit the 2.9 million mark by the time this went to press. But here's what I didn't realize at the time. So, the Julian auction house, was got a hold of this guitar, and they're going to put it on auction. They sent it to a repairman in L.A. Called Ryan Sherman. Now, obviously, he didn't know what this thing was going to sell for, but I would say that Ryan has balls of steel, because he did a neck reset on this. Now,
whoa!
I mean, I'm thinking that would probably. I mean, there's
what does that entail? What do you mean a neck reset?
Well, that means removing the neck from the guitar. It's a set neck acoustic guitar. So that means steaming the neck off.
I didn't realize. I'm not familiar with the story. I didn't realize you were talking about an acoustic.
Yeah, this was recently. It was a discovered. This was stashed up in somebody's attic for 50 years over in England, and it was used in the movie Help and subsequent albums that the Beatles used. And both George Harrison and John Lennon played this guitar, and they're seen in the movie Help playing it.
My uncle's a luthier, and believe it or not, I don't mean to interrupt your story, but believe it or not, those neck resets, they're not as big of a deal as you think to a guy that's a competent repair guy.
Well,
it's kind of crazy. I've seen it done, and it's like you're like, for someone that knows what they're doing.
Yeah, well, I think this guy had the benefit of it being in an attic for almost 50 years. And apparently it a little bit of steam and it popped right out, which is what you want. Now, some guitars that are finished after the neck is set, you always end up with finish damage. And the most notable exception of that is Martins. Martins finish their bodies and their necks separately. So they actually, if you have to do a neck reset on a Martin, it's, I'll say, relatively easy to do. It's not easy no matter how you slice it, but in this case, it apparently popped right off. The finish was actually in pretty good shape, and our good friend Andy Babiak had a chance to go out to L.A. and play this guitar after it was all set up and everything, and he said it played incredibly well.
Wow, that's exciting.
I would assume that the person you're bringing that guitar to knows what the hell they're doing.
Yeah, yeah. You would hope it's
not just Googling guitar repair.
Guitar repair near me. but
I'm sure he had a reputation that would qualify him.
Yeah, but Andy's been on our show a couple of times. He has a shop near Rochester, New York, called Andy Babiak's Fab Gear, and he's also authored the Beatles gear books.
Yes, really
two
cool.
books. There's the Rolling Stones gear book. He did a book about Paul Bigsby, and he's done any number of other ones. And he's so knowledgeable. I mean, he gets so into the weeds on this stuff. It's crazy. But anyhow, I mean that would be fantastic to have the opportunity to play something like that. So
yeah,
congrats, Andy.
Andy. Congrats.
I always
Andy.
wonder if it would be a little disappointing too, though. You'd be like playing it and being like, "Well, I'm playing it." Like you're
I don't sound anything like.
Then you break a string. Oops.
I mean, I wonder if you'd be expecting something sort of cathartic to happen. You're just like, it's the same chords I'm always playing.
I still can't play Blackbird. Damn it.
That's because Paul didn't play that guitar.
Anyhow, thanks, Tony. Appreciate that. Let's see, Matt. What have you been up to this week in the world of guitars and music and whatever?
Oh man, I mean, just work, man. I'm working too much to be honest.
Are you listening to anything interesting these days that might you can get us hip to?
Music wise, not really. I mean, I tend to, go back to my indie rock roots when I'm kind of listening to stuff, and I have a good friend of mine that always sends me playlists of new stuff, but I have to hit him up because he hasn't sent me a new one in a while. But he's my one where I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. And I'll be like, I know. And it's some obscure band, but no, man. I mean, I was listening to some Death Cab. I was listening to, I actually hadn't listened to in like, 6 or 7 years. I was listening to some Pedro the Lion this week, and Chris Benson and I were chatting about that. And, so, a lot of that kind of stuff, even though, I tend to like a little more off-kilter stuff a lot of the times, but I was kind of back in that like straight up indie rock, late 90s, early 2000s.
A lot of Pavement
era,
and stuff like that.
Yeah, not Pavement, but a Superchunk, actually.
Okay.
Superchunk. So I was in like a, straight, because I went through a phase before that recently where I was listening to, who Bill Orcutt is?
No.
He's just like this super trippy guitarist, and it's like you could either take it as brilliant or like he's just making noise, depending on how you look at it. But
Bill Orcutt.
Yeah. I'm gonna go see him live actually too.
Oh, that's amazing. Cool. So you think he's pretty solid then?
Oh yeah, I love it. It's really cool.
We'll
it's
have
really
to check
cool.
that
I
out.
was in that phase with these songs that have no like chorus or anything.
Yeah.
And then so I think I was recovering from that with like I just want straight ahead, verse chorus, loud, quiet. Like
yeah. So, sometimes you need a little structure in your life,
Yeah, I even went back to some cursive and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been
okay. Cool.
I wish I had some more exciting, edgy stuff to say I've been listening to, but I don't.
It's quite all right. It is quite all right. Sometimes you have to go back and go, doggone it, this is great. That's kind of the fun about getting like records.
PJ Harvey too. I've been going back to some PJ Harvey.
Okay. Are you a vinyl chap?
I'm kind of a like foot in the water vinyl. I'll buy it and then I don't find myself playing them a whole lot, but I think it's neat and I appreciate the whole movement for it. And I have a good record player at home, and it's kind of like when the mood strikes, my wife and I will hang out and then listen. But I wouldn't say I'm a vinyl guy per se. I'm not that into it.
All right.
But I love that people are into it. It's so cool. I love anything where you're doing some sort of unnecessary technology just to do it. Like buying a tape echo or something, It's like,
well, there's ceremony to it, which is, it's like a lot of great things in life. Like if like sake or something like that. It's like it's a little bit of a or tea or something where you got to put in a little work to get a little something out of it.
Oh yeah, I mean that's half of guitar playing.
Yes.
You put up with this instrument that never really goes all the way in tune just by nature, and it takes a long time to learn. And
I'm doing it backwards though, because I put a lot into it to get a little bit out, and that's probably I need to work on that ratio.
We all have that to a certain ratio. So
yeah. All right. Well, that's cool.
I have no idea what mine is, and I don't want to know because somebody else will probably tell me, and it won't be what I want it to.
Yes, just stay in your own mind with that. Billy, how about you?
Hey, well, great news. As you know, I had some back surgery a handful of years ago.
Yes.
And
mic's up here, buddy.
And I'm okay. Okay. Anyway, I'm so healed now that I can play a heavy guitar again.
Cool.
So I pulled out my Fender
PVT 40.
No. I got rid of all of those. I can't do that anymore. So I pulled out my Fender Special Edition
The suspense is killing me.
Toronado GT HH solid body electric guitar.
Oh, yeah.
Blue with a white racing stripe.
Okay.
And a matching blue headstock. And I put in place of the standard stop tailpiece, my favorite go-to.
Oh, yeah, the Duesenberg.
The Duesenberg whammy.
Yeah.
The tremolo, yeah. And I replaced the pickups with Seymour Duncan Fat Cat P90s.
Oh, okay.
So they fit in the same humbucker slot.
P90 and a humbucker.
How much weight are we talking about?
It's not extremely heavy. I mean, it's 8 pounds maybe at the top.
That's
maybe.
not.
It's like 7.5, 8 pounds.
That's a lightweight guitar.
I was playing melody makers that weighed like 5.5, 6 pounds.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. But that's a lightweight guitar.
Yeah, and I could jump around with those things, and it was great. But now I can.
But you're still not in 70s Les Paul territory.
No.
That's a heavy guitar. At least the ones I played.
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah. I have one Les Paul, and it's about an 8-pounder.
If you did play that, you'd have to get one of those like Richie Sambora guitar stands. just have it on that.
Well, don't they? I saw some. I don't remember the brand. I saw some advertisement for one that it like goes on a different way, the strap, and apparently it's like people that have messed up backs love it.
It's like
I
a
saw
split
that
strap,
too,
isn't
yeah.
it? It's like split.
No, it's not
Okay.
split. It looks like a regular thing, but I think somehow it attaches differently to. Maybe it sits on your suspenders or something.
Whoever owns that company is probably listening right now. Like,
Say the name. Millions
Okay. If you're listening, call in.
sorry, buddy, I would, but I don't remember the name of it. But yeah, they make these.
So anyway, I'm pulling that out for the upcoming Comfest show that the Mathematics are doing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So,
Right on. Super fun, man.
Yeah.
Dig it. For me, how
about you, Todd?
Well, we're in a writing mode right now. We're coming up with all kinds of like cool things that are requiring like slightly different adjustments to the board, to my pedal board. And I was just looking at it, and I looked down, and I walked away, and I came back and looked at it, and I walked away, and I came back, and I said, "Oh, screw it." And I just tore the whole thing apart.
Got out the clippers and
It was
off
it was not kind of. At first, I was kind of nervous because it took me a while to get this thing put together. And I was like, is this the smartest thing to do? But I was just happy because one of the neatest. Neat is a weird word. But a pedal that I have a great
affinity for.
Is the Tontuga Delphine, which is the two echoes in the same box, and you can blend them. You can just do one. You can do the other, but it's based off of the Echoplex. So it's got the what the hell is it called? The preamp for that, and it has a mix in it, which is kind of cool. And so you can they don't have to be slammed up right against each other, so you can have the right level, but you don't need to have the same amount of mix together. So anyways.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's what I was doing.
Fun, and so it's fun, and it's like so anxiety producing when you're like, okay, the show or the whatever is coming up, I got to get the pedal board ready, and it's like, oh man, I don't know.
Yeah.
Gets me stressed out, but it's fun at the same time. But I know it's such a weird anxiety.
It kind of is.
Is it gonna fit right? Is it going to look cool?
Right.
Do I care if it looks cool? Mine are always sloppy looking because I change them out so much. I'm like,
Yeah. Me too.
I can't do all the zip ties and everything. Just because
I've resigned to have a band board, and then another one that is just like, let me slap some stuff together, see if these things work. Do I like the sound of it? Okay, does it make it to the board? But
then 8 hours later, you still haven't decided.
Yeah. And then you come back and you're like, well, let me just try this one thing. And they're like, well, if I do that, then I got to unravel the entire thing.
Right.
Derp, 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 So anyways, that was pretty cool and pretty fun.
Yeah.
Put
it in a drawing.
The thing that is very helpful when you're rearranging an entire pedal board is to have some Tour Gear Designs patch cables.
What?
To stitch these things all together. I'm telling you,
So true.
I had them all spread out, organized by size, so I could just go whoosh, 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 and it worked.
Wow, that was almost like one of those kung fu movies.
It was. I was like kung fuing. I highly recommend you go get some of these things. They are at tourgeardesigns.com.
Yes.
You're going to load up your cart because there's so many different sizes and configurations, and they are fantastic. You're going to load up your cart, and you're going to put the guitar knobs in the coupon area,
yes,
and you're going to save 15%.
All lowercase, all one word.
All lowercase, all one word, and they're going to get to you lickety split,
Yep.
even though they're located in Canada. But that means they're made with niceness. So
Hey, y'all.
go down to tourgeardesigns.com. We want to thank them for sponsoring our Four on the Floor. Tony?
Let me get a little bit of this.
1, 2, 3.
Four on the floor.
All right. Matt Holl from Wren And Cuff. What is your Four on the Floor?
All right, and the stipulation being that it's not going to be any of mine.
Yes.
But mine, you know what? I'd be surprised if it's changed a whole lot. But I am late on this train, but Chris sent me one of the Benson preamps a while ago, and I kind of you have so many pedals around, and we're always swapping pedals around, like different companies, that it kind of sat on my shelf for quite a while just because I never plugged it in. And I finally plugged it in, and I've been it's just a nice preampy tool, and I've been into that one. That one's kind of lived on my board for a while now.
How do you use preamp?
I mean, it's called a preamp, but I mean, it's essentially just an overdrive pedal. I've never dug into, whether it's based on anything or if it's just Chris's original design. I couldn't tell you, but it's just, to me, it's like I don't believe it's a Tube Screamer variant, but it's got that sort of like instant presence that a Tube Screamer has. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where it can almost be too much in a good way sometimes. Like you step on it and you're like, there's my guitar. Damn.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I like to hide in a little bit of, scooped mid-range and kind of play around there. And then when all the frequencies are right there in your face, sometimes you're a little bit like, oh shit, I can't mess up now.
Yeah.
But no, it's just an all-arounder, man. It's one of those ones I've discovered I like just having it there. I don't have it dialed in for specific things yet, but I'm like, when I want to be heard, I step on that. And it really stacks well with stuff. So I've been enjoying that one a lot. Steve at Empress I ran into at this thing, and he wanted one of our pedals. He did a swap, and he sent me this reverb of theirs, the Big Dog. And it's really cool and really overwhelming. Like I've barely scratched the surface of it.
Yeah.
And like it does so much, like I don't even know yet, but all I know is like I can kind of just blindly turn the knobs and something cool happens. So I've been having fun with that one because I'm not, all the years I've been doing this, I'm honestly not a like lots of knobs guy.
That's the white one with like the rainbow kind of vibe on the front.
Mine's like silver. It's the
silver.
Funny enough, it doesn't say the name of it on the front, but yeah, the one that's like big.
It's just called the Reverb Effects Processor.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's so many options on it. I'm like, damn, man.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll ever get through them all, but it's kind of got me doing that stuff. Usually I like my delay pedals with 3, maybe 4 knobs at the most, and all that. But I got it on there, and just step on it sometimes and see what happens.
Yeah, it is one of those nicer ones though that doesn't make you. It's like, hey, welcome to this pedal. Grab your lantern and a snack, and we're gonna run down the tunnel of effects. And pretty soon you're like, this is annoying, and I'm just out. One of the things that I really love about this particular pedal is that right out of the gate, you got some presets, which are cool, but it gives you the Hall plate spring room option, which is like, okay, now I'm in familiar territory, and also sparkle modulation, ambient swell, delay, and reverb, reverse, ghost, lo-fi, and beer. So,
all right, so you already are way deeper than me.
Well, I'm just looking at it, But beyond that, and then all the knobs on the thing are actually just EQ and little odds and ends that trails and a little bit like that. So it's a highly usable pedal, even though it is a bit complex, which I appreciate. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's some people love all those options, and I got it on my board. So, like I said, I'm mainly using it as I kind of fiddle and then just step on it. It's kind of nice. I'll just be like, I don't exactly know what's going to happen, but something cool will happen.
Yeah,
and I think it's got modes where you like hold a button down and then makes one knob do something different and all that. But I gotta sit down with the booklet. But, I've been having fun with that one. A sort of not the most exciting one, and I think you mentioned something to me about it, but I've really been enjoying my strobe tuner. My Peterson strobe tuner.
Yeah. Did you get the mini or the regular size one?
The mini one, small. No, the regular size one.
Okay.
Which I like the bigger display. I know the mini one you're talking about. The mini one's really small, right? Like
It's very small, but it still does a strobe thing on it. Although I think it's only a 2-band strobe, where I think, if I'm correct, the larger one is a 3 or 4-band strobe. That's
yeah,
it.
I use my Boss tuner for decades. My daughter started playing guitar in a band, and so I was able to pass that down to her. And I was going to just buy another one, but it's one of those pedals. It's like so sentimental for me. I mean, it's been on even before I had a board. It was just one of those ones beat to crap. But Boss pedals, they just got that design right when they made pedals. Man, those things last.
It is. That's one of those pedals that people are actually really sentimental about, which is okay.
Yeah, I find a lot of people go away from them and then sort of come back to them. There's some things that aren't my favorite that in some of the tones with certain pedals, but I'll still. The other pedal I have on my board is my DS1 that it's a 79 DS1.
Okay.
And then and it's got this weird like warm thing happening. I don't know, it's probably just from years of electrons rolling through all the components and all that, but I have that thing dialed in, and that's always one that stays on my board. And then is that 4? Is that that's 4.
That's 3.
That's 4 by my count.
4.
Well, I got the tuner, the Benson, the reverb, and then the DS1.
That's 4.
So you only had one
tuners didn't
repeat
count.
from the last time, which was the DS1. Your previous were the Boss DD2, the Keeley compressor, and the Electro-Harmonix tall font Big Muff.
Yes. Interesting.
I
do have a question about your tuner, because, and actually this plays really well into, actually, I'm going to segue.
Segue?
I'm going to create a segue. As the warmth of the day makes way for the cool embrace of the night, let us throw caution to the wind. We're going to talk. We're getting into talking about how you're using fuzz and stuff and tips and that where you put your tuner, and also are you doing bypass or sorry true bypass or buffered?
Yeah. I like to put it on the headstop.
Not you, ding dong. This guy. Matt, help me out here.
I mean, I always, just naturally I have to stick the tuner on one of the first things because, I don't want to might forget that I have a phaser on or something and be sitting there.
That would be fun.
Tune a guitar that's thrown and I'm like, oh, what's wrong with my guitar? And, I'm not one of those that shit'll happen in like from playing live or something. That'll happen in the moment. And I'll be like, why is it not working? So,
well, there's a lot of lore around like, don't ever put anything in front of a fuzz. Do you follow that, or is it sort of like, whatever?
It's not. No, that's only a couple kinds of fuzzes. I'm not super like all of our stuff is we've stuck with just the clanky triple pole double throw switches that are like the mechanical true bypass. But my thing with like buffers and all that is like I'm not afraid of them, and if there's some mixed in with things, then I think it's fine. If you have like a giant pedal board of all buffered pedals, I definitely think your tone's going to suffer a bit, especially if some of them are vintage. But like, I try to have the majority true bypass, but I don't like my DS1. I don't have that on like a true bypass loop or anything. And I only made that decision because I A/B'd some stuff, and I was like, I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
and that's one. I mean, you can even call that a tip before we even get into it. Is that like before you just do something because you have a belief or you read something? It's like I'm okay with that. I don't play clean that often, so my things aren't going to be true bypassed anyways.
Right.
I'm not a super I love my amps and all that, but I'm almost distortion and fuzz and stuff like that. So
the reason I asked that was because that Peterson strobe tuner has true bypass, or you can select either true bypass or buffer.
Let me go back to what you were saying about fuzz though. Is you're only really about not putting buffers in front of them. You're only really talking about vintage tone benders, vintage. Or circuits based on the vintage fuzz faces and that'll have impedance issues with that.
Okay.
But But most like big muffs don't care. You can put a buffer in front of them; they're fine. And like 90% of all the other ones, because in those early days when they were designing the stuff, they just didn't really have any standards and know exactly what they were doing, and they weren't planning on buffered pedals before. But like, anything, it's almost always doesn't matter. You know?
Okay.
So yeah,
I gotcha.
But for instance, our Your Face pedal, which is based on a fuzz face, it does matter because I made it the old school way, and we have a little warning sticker on there about it. But they're few and far between the ones that care about a buffer.
That's the baby blue one on your website. Speaking
and then
of
there's
that,
a red
make
one.
sure everybody goes over to wrenandcuff.com so you can follow along the bouncing ball while we're talking. Okay.
What does the warning sticker
and that
say?
said, when I do use one of those pedals, which will end up in there, I do put that before the tuner because those pedals don't care about a buffer after them, but before, that causes horrid sounds. The sticker just says, make this pedal the first thing your guitar sees in the chain. Otherwise, the tone gets yucky and it's not like a little bit different. It's like it's really yucky if you put a buffer in front of it. It's kind of incredible because they want that load down from your pickups to sound nice and warm and squishy and all that, and they tend to turn into like a buzzy, harsh mess when you have buffered pedals in front of them.
Well, Matt, you are an authority on fuzz, specifically your love for the Muff. You've created an entire company, doing variants of the Muff in all of its forms and a few other things. So we can't think of anybody better to walk us through some tips and tricks on using said fuzzes and probably telling us about a few of your own pedals along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of become that guy. Just over the years, I kind of ended up going down that path. It's not even so much because I'm obsessed with that pedal in particular. It kind of more became about being obsessed with the recreation, if that makes sense. Like when I discovered early on that there were so many variants and big muffs and stuff, I would find one that I liked and, be like, kind of get obsessed with recreating that exact sound, which ended up working really well. It wasn't a conscious thing to me. It ended up working really well because, as marketing and all that stuff goes, it was instead of just making a big muff, I was like, hey, I'm really recreated this old one I have, warts and all. And because that was the pursuit. The pursuit wasn't a lot of times, like with our pedals, it's not even what I want or what I like. It's this vintage pedal that I'm like, what can I do to make my pedal sound exactly like that? And that's kind of always been the approach for me, which is both amazing, fun sometimes, and then also really challenging and also really frustrated because a lot of times you can buy all the same values and the same components and all that, and it won't sound the same, and you're like, well, what am I doing wrong here? And you have to figure out why and do all that kind of stuff, and you have to do some unorthodox things, and so that's like the main pursuit. And with the big muff, there's so many variants of that and all that. It just makes it a really fun thing as opposed to just being obsessed with that sound effect as much, and that's and it ended up being it wasn't my I didn't really have a plan as a company, but it kind of ended up being my thing, and got good at it, and it's worked out well. It's fun.
What was the breakout pedal for you in your collection?
Probably the tall font, which is funny because it's definitely that's why was part of the pursuit of why I started doing this, because the one that I had was this transitional one, or still have, it's transitional one. And a lot of the tall fonts variants, they're really fuzzy and have a lot of output and really bright, rich sound and tons of gain. And the one I had leans more towards a bubble font where it's got a lot less gain. You have to turn the knob to like 9 o'clock to find unity gain on some of them, which is weird for a big muff. And, the mid scoop wasn't as pronounced, but I really dug the pedal. And actually, our distro in Japan asked me, he's like, hey, can you recreate a Sovtek muff? He didn't tell me what kind. He just asked if I could. And I had that one I liked, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this one. I'm going to do it exactly like this one. And either people are going to, not get it and no one's going to buy it, or they're going to get it. Because if you sit down with that pedal and you play it next to pretty much any other muff, you're like, this is super underwhelming. Like,
Yeah.
it's not that much fuzz. The output's not that much. The scoop isn't super squishy. So but I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to stick to my, I don't know if you want to call them principles, whatever you want to call it, but I'm going to stick to this and do it exactly like that. And of course, I did a long write up about why I did it that way and everything. And it ended up doing really well. People really dug it. And I think a lot of people appreciated that it was different in that way, that it was kind of not, because it's not just going for the sitting in the guitar store and there's this wall of fuzz drenching everything. It's always going to sound impressive. You know what I mean? It doesn't really, when you're in there and it's like, whoa, this is so cool, or in the, bedroom. But when you're like a player that's out doing shows and stuff like that, sometimes you'll appreciate things like, that have more presence, but don't sound as exciting sitting there in your room listening to it, and that's kind of what the tall font became for a lot of people. I had like country artists emailing me being like, I have never used, any sort of big muff, anything in my rig, but I found uses for yours. And now it's like a staple on my pedal board.
It's very versatile. Yours is specifically, I think. Yeah.
And I had to come up with ways to do that because I couldn't do it with just copying the values of it. It was, it took some little things to make it sound just like that, and it paid off. It was one of those things. And so I kind of stuck to that, and that sort of, I had to do that with Jay's pedal, Jay Maskus pedal. That was a challenge, man, to make it sound like his favorite one.
Yeah.
So long way of saying, that's kind of how my reputation got to be that.
Yeah. Actually, we went into depth about the Jay Maskus pedal when you were on the show. And so
I think it was just coming out, yeah.
Yeah. So, but you talked about how that worked out and how he agonized over everything. And so I would encourage people, Tony, what number?
That would be number 153.
Go check out episode 153, and you can hear that full story because it is really cool. Now,
yeah, it was fun.
Matt, we all have probably scratched our heads a few times when we're like, what about this pedal, or what about this pedal, especially when it comes to fuzz, and especially when it comes to the Muff family, because what translates, what sounds cool in the bedroom often doesn't translate to the stage, and or vice versa. There's a lot of factors that go into how to make that sound good. So could you please enlighten us so that we play better stuff?
Yeah, you just buy this magic pedal of ours and make them all sound awesome.
Any one of the 23 that you have.
I would venture to say, although, I have no statistics on this or anything, that, big muffs and big muff variants are all probably one of the most excitedly bought and then sort of, quickly sold pedals ever made. The reason I say that is because I think, a lot of people, and I'm more talking about people that are out playing shows.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't play as many shows now, or don't play a lot live now. But, when I started this company, that's what I was doing. And before that, and I had been one that had got one, and I was like, God, this sounds so cool, all this distortion. Then got into practice room, started playing, and my tone just kind of disappeared, And I was like, well, why does this sound so cool? And I didn't know anything about gear back then either. I just kind of played what was around, and I was like, why does this sound so great when I'm just jamming on it? And it's, it's so fun, but it just, all of a sudden I can't hear my guitar when I step on it, when I'm expecting this big, epic chorus, and then I stomp on it, and it's just like, I literally remember being at one of our rehearsals and we did that, and I just started just hitting my strings open, and like I couldn't tell the difference because I just had it drenched in fuzz, and everything is so like compressed, and we were also a young band, so we didn't know the whole thing of like balancing out your volumes. We were all just like, I can't hear enough of my guitar. I'll turn it up. Rather than why don't we all look at this and see where we should set our volumes? It's just like, and then that guy wouldn't be able to hear his guitar, and it'd just be at deafening volumes. But so I would venture, guess that's one of those kind of pedals for a lot of people. And it took me a long time. I actually was, I played a show in Bakersfield, the band that I was in. This is like, I think maybe 1998, 99. And I saw this band. I can't even remember. I have no idea what they were or who they were. And there was like a handful of people there to see them. But this kid was there, and all he had was a Sovtech Muff. And I remember this is such a Sovtech Big Muff thing. I remember him plugging in the jacks and it cutting out and everything, and him being really like delicate with it because he knew it was But this kid got this sound that it was just killer, and it worked for the band that he was in, and it was just like thick and buzzy, and it was like, and I can't remember what amp it was. It wasn't even like a great amp. I think it might have been some solid state amp. I can't remember, but I was just like, how's this kid doing this like sound that's amazing, and he's just got one pedal and it's practically broken. And, so that made me start being like, oh, maybe there's something to this, and I realize a lot of it's about how you approach it.
Yeah. It's tricky because, we've all been teased and dazzled by some of these players like, Billy Corgan, Jay Mascis, just to name, two, that when you find out, it's like, they're like, oh, this is the Muff I was using, like, and then you try that and you're like, this doesn't sound anything like that. And that's difficult. It's super hard. I mean, I will say it sounds like that. Let me backtrack. It will make it sound like that by yourself in the room. But if you try to bring that to the band, it's gone. And
yeah, well, what's funny too is, a lot of I've seen bands that, I won't single out any, but I mean, I've seen bands that Muff, like that's their whole sound, and seen them live and witnessed the same thing. You're like, oh, your guitar's just a mushy mess, and I can't really hear it.
Yeah.
And which is weird, and when you see that, and these are bigger bands that I'm not talking about, Smashing Pumpkins or Jay Mascis or anything, lesser known bands than that, but bands that are very Muff heavy, their sound. And I remember just being like, yeah, I think you didn't realize that you can't do the same thing on your record live to get that same effect. And I realized like I'm looking at a band that's like a lot younger than me, and I'm like, oh, they just don't know this stuff. And even though they're kind of famous, like, no one has went out of their way to tell them that, and they don't know it, and they're just doing what they know how to do, plug the pedal in and go. And I only know this stuff because I make pedals and I'm older, and I just, I've seen a lot of stuff and seen things come and go and all that. And I'm like, oh yeah, I've learned that lesson. Like, you can't do the same things on a record to get that effect as you do live.
So what are some of those things that people are doing wrong live or even in their own home that, if you got an engineer, a recording engineer, they're going to kind of sort it out so you still get that sound to a degree. But
oh yeah, imagine, Smashing Pumpkins without all the nice preamps and the tape warmth and all that stuff that they got back then. It's like you're trying to recreate in the bedroom this like millions of dollars worth of gear,
right?
But to get that, to get that amazing sound that they got, But yeah, I mean, if you're talking about a Big Muff, there's like two things you do with them. One of them is if you're in sort of a chill band and it's not your core sound, but you use it for some stuff and you use it for leads and that, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just use it for what it is. You dial in your sound and you're like, oh, if we're kind of jangly, and then there's this part that I want to really like, reedy, fuzzy thing on, you step on it and you're usually good. Where you run into problems is if you're a guitar heavy band, and that's the school that I come out of is, walls of usually 2 guitarists and just this drenched fuzz thing. And that's, to me, where you run into a lot of problems. And there's guys like Jay Mascis that you see and you're like, oh, all right, he knows what he's doing, because I can hear that wall of fuzz. I can hear it. And there's a big difference between the guys that know what they're doing and don't. And, one of the things is, if you make that decision, you're like, I'm a wall of guitars guy and I love the big muff. You have to make that decision that this is my sound. Because if you're going to make it that your sound, there's a couple things that you got to do that may screw up your other sounds. So if you're constantly like, I like a little big muff on this, and I like a little, this sound on this, and over here I like more of a, sort of overdrive thing and all, you can do that. But if you're really committed to that, like, I want that just, crunchy, like chewy big muff thing, you have to cater your gear to that, and a lot of people aren't ready to make that commitment. You gotta get your sound up. Big muffs, what a lot of people forget is they love pummeling the front end of a tube amp. So if you have a tube amp that you're just playing, and then you step on your pedal and it maybe gets a little bit louder, you're not going to get the best sound out of the big muff. It may still sound good, but big muffs thrive when they're just pegging the front end of your amp. I hate to keep coming back to the Jay Mascis thing, but when Jay runs his, he dimes the volume, which I can't even do. It's just this like, it's this out of control with a treble booster going into it. I'll get into that. But like, it's just, if he stops playing, it's just, this walls of noise. But it really loves that, because when it hits, big amp, small amp, whatever, when it, really pegs the front of that amp, it's when it really gets glorious. And, a lot of times if you're going to set it up like that and you're going to really pummel the front end of the amp, when you turn that big muff off, your amp's going to be a little lackluster. You're going to be like, oh man.
Do you think that when that was made, if we think about what was the gear situation when those were made?
I guess everybody was playing huge amps. I mean, but yeah.
For the most part, it was a lot of half stacks and super loud, and now it's not really that situation. So people trying to use one of those now, to your point, if you're trying to make it sound the way it's supposed to sound, you might run into trouble, because most places won't even let you turn your amp up beyond like 2 or 3 these days.
Oh yeah. And that's a big problem that we all have.
Yeah.
And but you can still, the peg in the front end of the amp thing, I don't think has so much to do with big amps, because you can do the same thing with a small amp. It's just, we're only talking about the heat of the input signal. So they were using big amps then, but I don't think big amps was the key to that sound, if that makes sense. It certainly sounds great, but it's more the approach, which, I get great sounds from this, tiny little, I have this like hot rodded VHT combo, which you can attenuate the, how many, the output on it, so you'll starve the amp a little bit, and it's not that loud, and I can still get that big amp sound from it, because I know that when I want a big muff sound, what I do is I turn its volume down really low, and I jack up the volume on the pedal, and I know I'm going to just smash that front end, and I'm going to get those tubes working and doing their thing. And I would definitely give the edge as far as comparing tones. I would give the edge to a nice wide open, super loud amp, of course.
Sure. Okay.
But but you can still accomplish that by just pegging the front end. Now, where again the tricky part is, okay, what about when I don't want that pedal on? But where you can take advantage of that is, I think that's true with all overdrives and fuzzes. they love just thrashing the front end of an amp, there. So it's not just big muffs, you can, if you take that approach, like, okay, like myself, I was in the whole true bypass diehard thing when I think my early 20s. And it was, a lot of it was just because that's what I heard. And when I had this kind of realization, I'm like, wait, how often do I even play without pedals on and stuff? And can I hear the difference with my pedals on? And I was like, there's certainly pedals that'll suck down your tone. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But, I was like, I'm not a clean amp guy, so I'm not that worried about it.
Yeah.
And, just that little bit of knowledge that like, oh my God, when you peg the front end of the amp with these fuzz pedals, that's when things get really good. That's when the like goodness happens. And when you hear records with those tones on them and stuff, I guarantee you that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
Because they aren't worried when they're recording, they're not worried about that. They're not like, oh, what am I going to do when I turn the pedal off? That's a whole different track, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
And they just cater their clean sound. So that's one thing. If you can make that part of what works for you sound wise, then, you can by all means have a muff, be a core part of your sound. For some people, their answer might simply be, yeah, I can't do that. I'm not going to cater my sound around this. But I do have this wall of guitar sound that I want, but I'm not catering it around a big muff, and sometimes the answer is like, yeah, maybe the big muff's not, or that Wren and Cuff pedal or whatever, isn't the right pedal for you.
Yeah. Do you find that...
Or certainly, and again, I'm applying all this to live playing,
sure,
because it's always been my approach, recording. I mean, everybody loves different fuzzes around, and you can always find a use for them. But I think that's what a lot of people go through. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just curious if you found you've played and built so many variations of these things. Can you say with any kind of certainty, like, look, if you're going to go for a big muff or a big muff style pedal, you're going to benefit from either, single coil, P90 or humbucker. Have you found one that you're just like, look, I know I like the sound of a humbucker, but a P90 and a muff wins every day of the week, or whatever? What's your combo for that?
Actually, no, not at all. Because I'm a single coil guy just because I am. But because when I'm designing pedals and all that, I use all different setups because I don't, I realize that all my customers aren't also just playing single coils. I do it with humbuckers and the P90s, all that kind of stuff. And no, I think you can, my personal is I'm a Strat guy, so I just plug a Strat in and go, for all my stuff, because I tend to like lower output Strat pickups because you can really get things, working. You can, with that lower input, you can really, get the amp turned up louder and all that. That's just a personal thing, but oh man, you can get a really good sound with any instrument. I know some people don't like humbuckers because they say they're too woofy and you get too much low end. And some people, they hate single coils because there's not enough low end.
Yeah,
so
sure.
It goes there, but no, man, you miss it. A lot of it just comes down to amp EQ. And I think part of the problem is I think a lot of people, they'll EQ their amp how it sounds good, clean,
right,
whether they play clean a lot or not, and if you're a distorted player, big muffs aside, anything, take what, this is one of those tips, take whatever 90% of your tone is and shape your amp around that. I did the same thing. I don't know, it's just like, well, you dial in how it should sound clean, then you adjust your pedals around that. No, if I'm 90% distortion, then I got to adjust my amp around that sound because that's what I'm doing 90% of the time.
Right.
And little bits of wisdom like that, like help so much, and it can be what makes you go, oh, okay, I get this now. Yeah, unless, you're primarily like a clean or slightly overdriven guy and you love your natural amp sound, then yeah, you can, like, if that's your 90% of the time sound, then yeah, you can throw a big muff on for some leads and some parts like that, and you'll be fine. You're not going to be lost in this wall of distortion because that's not your style. and that works too. People make great sounds with that. But
Yeah.
if you're the person that's, been like, I don't get it, I turn this pedal on, everything disappears, that's probably a big part of your problem.
Well, that, and also if you're playing by yourself, what you're missing is the highs from, your cymbals. So that's where, the fizzy bits kind of lay.
That's why my left ear is a little damaged.
Yeah.
Hearing
Mine's the right. And you also have your bass. And, so what the big thing with those muffs is that it's the mid scoop, which why you see so many variants that have fixes for that. I mean, a lot of your pedals, you've figured out ways to go like, hey, I'm going to make this really, really usable, not just stuck with a mid scoop.
Yeah, and we had those on them. A funny kind of bit of information was whenever I use big muffs, I use them unmodded because, to me, it turns into a distortion pedal that way. But like, kind of the sound of a big muff is that mid scoop, and not always. I've used a one with the mid flat sometimes, but it's just a cool distortion pedal once you do that. It's not really a big muff to me anymore. It's not really that sound, which, that's amazing, but like, I'm so focused on this big muff thing. And we did that for the custom shop, and we've done that for some of our other stuff because people dig it, and it is a very cool tone. Mm-hmm. But still, the majority of our stuff isn't. Like on our the big pink pedal, the IC78 OG. There's we call it a secret because, we didn't advertise or anything, but, everybody knows now. But there's a little trim pot inside, and you can adjust that mid scoop, which that's the one I have messed with that when I've used it live. And it's really, it really adds a little something, I think, on those IC based muffs. Mm-hmm. So there is that on there. And then the Super Russian has that option as well. And those are cool. But, it turns it into a distortion pedal, and, part of that whole Muff signature thing is that sound, and, that big scoop. And that's what also can steal your presence, because anybody that's done any recording or guitar playing or anything knows where's your presence. Well, it's in the mids.
Yeah.
That's where that stuff lives.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, how about any wisdom on stacking, like whether it's true stack or.
Well, that's one way, sort of a loophole with it, that you can get that sort of pegging the front of the amp sound without actually pegging the front of the amp. If you have to do that, you need to keep your you don't have that luxury of cranking the amp up really loud as by stacking stuff. And that's what a lot of people do. Like we have the Coheed Cambria pedal and the Mascus pedal. Like both of those evolved from those guys, like into stack stuff. Claudio was he'd take an SD1 back in the day and then send that into his op amp muffer, and that's how he got a lot of those early sounds. And it was mainly, when he told me about it was mainly just because that's what he had, and he just played them together and went, that sounds cool. And that's one of those ways that you can overcome some of that stuff. But there's a trade-off with that too, is it's going to be noisy. Yeah, I remember reading a couple like reviews on our pedals, like, oh, it's a really noisy pedal. I'm like, yeah, it's a big one. Like it's like, and you stack a
part of the
pedal. Thing. Yeah, and the guy was like, when I stacked the pedals, it was just so much white noise. I'm like, yeah, that's the correct sound. That's what they do. Especially when you stack them. But yeah, I mean, I have, like, I'll give you. I guess I'll turn this amp on here.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is a prime example of it. So if I go clean amp here, it's pretty dinky sounding now because I'm not really getting the benefits of the tubes in the amp because I'm trying to get a good sound at a low volume because I'm doing a podcast and I'm in my office and, I can't blast through things right now. And when you're just so the audience knows when you're hearing this, I do have a mic in front of the amp. This is at a really low volume, but I can get a really big sound out of it. And what I'm doing is I'm using our Blue Violet Caprid, and I have this one at 9 o'clock, and this is a high output pedal. It's not like the tall font. Like the pedal's really cranked, but it's really smashing that preamp in there. And so it's getting a nice thick full sound from a low volume, if I'm not going to do it right now, but if I balance that out, if I turn the amp up and then turn the pedal down, it's still going to sound okay, but it's just not going to, you hear there's like this like sort of syrupy presence to it.
Yeah.
And I can't get that without really hitting the front end of the amp hard.
Yeah.
It's more just a fuzz then, as opposed to like this rich throaty thing. And that applies to fuzz phases and tone benders too, man. They just really open up when you get the volume dimed up there. And, something like if you're going to do that, we'll go back to Jay for a second. What he likes to do is a lot of his core sound isn't even with the big muff on all the time. He uses, I think, a tube driver, and I can't remember the last time I saw his board. He changes stuff up, but when he has his big muff and his treble booster on a loop, on a MIDI switcher and all that. And so on his really big parts, the reason he doesn't lose presence on that is because the treble booster and the muff are dimed all the way up. So he can have that wall of distortion sound. And I mean, bro, when he stops playing, like he's like a master of riding the volume knob and then killing the pedal off. If he stops playing, it is just horrendous. You're like, dude. But that's how he's able to get away with that. He doesn't have the disappearing guitar sound because they're both hammering the front end of his giant amps.
Yeah.
And what he does is he just uses a regular old treble booster for that, and I'm talking a treble, like the garbage face pedal. It has a switch just to make it more practical for people. It's got a full treble and then, a more full boost to it. But he doesn't even use full boost ever. He uses the treble, which is cutting a lot, and it's just introducing this huge, even though it's a treble booster, it's also a mids booster, introducing this big mids push. And it's funny, it's a sound that you can only get by throwing those mids into the pedal rather than, like modifying the pedal to have the mids. They're both good sounds, but something about like cutting those lows out and getting rid of that rumble. And, I'll just give you the example with the Blue Violet. So here's the Blue Violet. And then if I hit the front end of it with the treble booster from Jay's pedal,
Yeah. Woke it up.
you hear all those overtones that
Yeah.
pop through, and you hear how noisy it is when I stop playing.
Yes.
But those overtones just pop, man. It's like a glorious sound. I mean, I can just hold my finger on it and just it'll sustain for days.
I like that a lot.
And you hear even with this little combo, if I had if you didn't know, I could tell you I was playing a Marshall stack, and you might believe me.
Yeah.
Because you're getting all that richness coming out, and those. To me, good tone is about overtones. When you really get those little things coming over the top edge.
I totally agree with you on that. We talk about that a lot here. That's where I find the real fun in if you're playing a song, you can get that, and it's like, I know what the pedal is supposed to be doing, I know what the guitar's supposed to be doing, I know what I'm doing, and I know what the amp's doing, but there's something else in here that's happening. That's electric.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that we get, all of us, we get stuck in gear land, and and like what's good and what's not, and this sucks and this is great and all that. But when you come down to those things that non-musicians in the audience hear and don't even know they're hearing, that makes their head turn, a lot of times it's those sweet overtones and stuff like that, where they're like, oh, this sounds like a band, like a pro band,
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times that's what your audience is hearing, those things. And for guitar, I don't believe that a lot of that lives in the low end. The low end, I try, in my personal playing, I try to let the bass player do that, and that's his kitchen. And even there's like I don't know if you heard this band called the Archers of Loaf, but like
Yeah.
you know they have this song called The Lowest Part Is Free, and it back in the day it seemed like a really loud mix, but nowadays standards, you know, it's not that loud of a mix. But I would crank that in my car and just be like, man, this is just such a huge sound. And one day I realized, I'm like, if I just listen to the guitars, they're not that thick, you know. What I'm hearing and what I'm not getting on my own recordings is that I'm clouding up all this low end, fighting with my bass player, when I should just let the bass be the bass.
Yeah.
And the thickness of my guitar tone and all that, it lives more in those mids and those overtones, you know?
Yeah.
Which is all ironic because I'm talking about this pedal that I specialize at that scoops those mids out. But there's something about
that goes to
taking
the amp EQ bit again, because that you kind of just uncovered, like, you know, when you're playing by yourself in your home, you want to hear the full range of the EQ typically. But when you're playing with your band, that's why it disappears, because a huge part of what you got, the thing that you like, is like, oh, I feel that low end. I can hear that chunk and that low end, but it's smacking right into the bass when you're playing with the bass.
Yeah, and that's a real puzzle when you don't know that.
Yes.
You know, when you don't, and you know, sometimes I forget how much I didn't know. You know, I think that goes for a lot of life, not just, you know, guitar gear, but you just forget like how little you knew, because it doesn't make sense. Like, what makes sense is I want a bigger tone, so I turn the bass up.
Yeah.
Turn the bass knob up.
Yep.
You know, and why would I get a bigger tone from less of that? You know, because you're not familiar with phasing, and you know, and there being a limit on how much of one frequency there can be. You can only get it to a certain point, and then things start fighting with each other. I remember I had a friend of mine, this guy, it's an engineer named Paul Figueroa. You know, he was one of the first to kind of visualize it or make me see the picture. He's like, you get these frequencies, man, and they just start fighting with each other. And when they start fighting with each other, they're not really doing much good. And I didn't understand all the technicalities of that, but it kind of I've almost pictured these frequencies literally like punching at each other and wasting all this time trying to fight with each other rather than just being good sounding.
Yep.
You know, and you know, a lot of that stuff is, it's in that amp EQ, and with heavy fuzzes, with muffs, with all that stuff, those, when you really pummel the front end of that amp, man, those other frequencies come through, especially if you're not afraid to shave some lows off your amp. Mm-hmm. And that room comes out in those overtones. Like, to me, whenever I test a pedal, you know, that I like, I have this one thing I do, and it's super easy, and I play the B flat on the G string. And when I hit that note, if I'm like, because my ears are used to it, like this also goes for the guitar setup too. A good guitar setup, a good pedal, you hear this octave up that comes in as it decays away. And I don't know the math behind it or whatever. I just know that's my testing note. I play that B flat on there because that's where it tends to pop through.
Okay.
And most
B
people
flat on the
it.
G string, everybody. Do it.
Yeah, but it takes a while to hear it because it's a very specific overtone, and I've listened for it so much now I hear it like, you know, pretty much right away. But most people don't. When a lot of people, I can sit there with them and be like, "Do you hear that overtone? Do you hear that octave up coming in?" And they'll be like, "I don't quite hear it." Now, when you peg a treble booster into there, it's going to be even more pronounced. You know, it's. I don't know if you guys.
You don't even
hear
have
that,
to touch it. You just look at it and it sustains.
Yeah, but I hear this ooh over the top of it,
yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's where the sound's at. That's now we're getting where I want it to be.
Yeah,
you know, and when you EQ things around and you find ways to make that little thing pop, you know, it's one of my little tricks where I'm like, okay, if I get that note popping, then I'm in good territory here, you know, and that's especially one of those little tricks I'll use when if I have to play the dreaded back line or something like that, where you're like, oh man, I need to get my sound, I need to get it quick, and I'm on gear that I'm not familiar with. I'll start EQing things that way. And another favorite combo of mine is a tube screamer into a big muff, which it's probably not news to a lot of people. And even without the overdrive going into it, when I just dime the volumes, you're gonna hear that too. So bottom line, crank the volume on your big muffs.
There you go. Crank the volumes, stack a few things, get your pedal to open up a little bit.
And more than anything, decide, what you want to sound like. Not what you think you should sound like or what gear you think you should use. And if you're new at this, maybe it's not great to go out and spend a bunch of money on pedals. Buy some cheap pedals and figure out what you like. If you're like, a big muff is generally a big muff to somebody that's new. They're not going to hear a lot of difference between our Tri-Pi 70 and, our box of War. To me, they're worlds apart. But to your average, new guitar player, they're going to be like, yeah, it's a heavy fuzz.
Uh-huh.
Don't go out and spend a bunch of money on those. Just go and get, the one, find a used one or whatever, find a couple different ones, and wait till your ears are able to know what's going on while you're finding those sounds. And then when you're like, okay, now I'm ready for quality, now I'm ready for something, because my goal is always like, make a pedal for somebody that's going to stay on their board.
Yeah.
Because this day and age, we're always switching shit out. Right? Like, I want to be that one that they're like, every time I go to take it off, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
Because it's like part of my sound's integrated into my sound now. And, and the only reason I bring up not spending a lot of money in the beginning in that is because I've seen, I don't spend much time on forums and that anymore, because it starts to mess with me how I want to design stuff, and I want to design stuff not on people's comments, but on what I want to do. But, I've seen people I'm new to fuzz, and, I'm not really sure what to do. And these people are recommending these $300 and $250 fuzzes to them. You should get this. And I'm reading the thing going, this guy has no idea what it's all about.
Right.
Not because he's an idiot, but because he's new.
Yeah. And may not even have spent that on an amp.
Yeah. And so don't tell the guy to go out and spend a bunch of money. Tell him, hey, just buy any fuzz, buy any overdrive, figure out what you like about them, and then you might be like, yeah, this is great, but now that my ear's a little better, it doesn't quite have the richness in the mid-range that I like. Mm-hmm. Then start looking at what pedal's going to focus me more there, what pedal's going to do that, but you got to figure out what you want to do first, and you got to go through a lot of crappy tones too. I mean, some people, I always envy those guitarists that are just like, I just plugged in the amp, started playing, and that's been my sound for 40 years, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
It wasn't that easy for me.
That's wise. That's some wisdoms. So all in all, go play with some fuzz. Go borrow some of your friends. Can I do
one more thing really quick? I know we're running out of time.
Yeah, you go ahead.
We're doing a partnership with Dunable. We're doing a collab with Dunable partnership. And with that pedal's coming out pretty soon. It's called it's called the Heart. His son's name is Heart, and it's spelled HARDT.
Uh-huh.
And he wanted to name the pedal with that, and it's got a active EQ in it, which is unlike most pedals that we make, and most pedals in general have the passive EQ. This one's got the active, so you can this will be quick, I promise. You can take the distortion way back, and all the hides and everything are retained, because there's not that passive. With big muffs and that, you turn the distortion way down, and everything gets muddy because it's just kind of by nature. But the active EQ lets us have that, and it makes it really versatile. And it's just got an ungodly amount of distortion, and it's geared for down, a lot of down tuning and thick strings and that kind of stuff. And I'm excited about it. And Sasha's been really fun to work with. So
Right on.
I said, hey, send me a Dunable guitar because it's going to be a Dunable pedal, and I didn't have one yet. And, so yeah, I'm excited
Cool.
about that. There's my product.
When's that coming out?
Probably we haven't set the date yet, but I'm thinking 4 to 5 weeks. We should have it out.
All right.
There. So somewhere next month around this time, July.
Super cool. Well, make sure you stay. Do you have like an email on your email sign up or anything on your site so people can get notified?
Of course.
Cool.
Yeah, of course. You'll see, it's in the footer, and then there's also a page that you can sign up on.
All right. So
And-
get on over there
Our
to Wren
email
And Cuff
list
and do
is cool
that.
to be on too. Our emails is cool to be on too because we don't send emails out that often, so it's not one of those. Oh God, why did I sign up for this email list?
Yeah.
We're not blasting stuff out all the time. We try to be careful about that. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, we learned a lot. I think we got some great tips, and we heard some cool tones. And we didn't really say it, but ladies and gentlemen, if you like fuzz, I highly recommend you go spend some time on the Wren and Cuff site because there's over 20 pedals that are going to tickle your toenails for sure. We are going to check in with Tanya really quick because he's got something for us.
That's right, Todd. This week, we're going to jump in the Wren and Cuff fuzzy van and head over and check out some fun things. But first, this is a little game that we like to play called Would You Rather?
You really phoned that one in.
Hey, I'm phoning this one in.
Yes, okay. Go ahead.
But anyhow, the good news is you've won the Mega Millions lottery and now have money to burn. You're lighting cigars with $100
man.
bills. It's the life of luxury.
We need to do that here. We need to just we should do that.
Let's just light up some cigars.
No, get the money.
Oh, no, I want to light up cigars.
Okay, go ahead.
So, you got all this money. You've decided that you're going to create your own record label.
Okay.
Now, your MO for your label is we create the art that otherwise would not be created.
Okay.
You like that?
Sure.
Yeah. We have to get a name for this. So, due to artist scheduling conflicts,
Frank and Beans.
Franks and
Frank and Beans.
That's right. Artists do have scheduling conflicts. That's
yes.
true.
Well, we have conflicts, and you have a limited number of musicians performing as a duo to record the label's debut release. This, by the way, is brought to us by our good friend from Bruce Bacon.
Yes. Franks and Beans.
Franks and Beans.
Got it. Go ahead.
Bacon. There's bacon and beans.
Bacon in that. Go ahead.
Here's your choices. It's limited, but could be cool. First choice is Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead. And
Restate the thing because I think we got lost in the naming thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm confused now.
I am too.
All right. You got the studio, see?
Yes, I got the
You
studio.
see, you got the studio, see?
Yes.
And you got to have a debut album, see?
Got it.
And your MO is...
You got to get put on the map.
You got to put on the map, but we create the art that otherwise would not be created.
Yes, at Franks
So-
and Beans.
You know what we're doing? We're doing duos. And we want a duo for our first release. Your choices are Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead and Vernon Reid, Living Colour. That's
Yes.
duo number one.
Oof.
Or Larry Lalonde from Primus and Marty Friedman from Megadeth.
Yes.
Which duo do you choose?
There's only two?
You only got two choices.
Yes.
It's called Would You Rather.
Oh, man.
It's option one, option two.
The best of worst worlds.
Not
Okay.
really.
Oh, okay. It depends.
This one
I
is
can already say everybody here is going to pick number one, I think.
You think? Well, we're going to find that out. Tony?
Yes. I am going with option one
Okay.
because I think that
See, he
combination.
proved you wrong, Matt.
What?
I mean, I love those two artists just as it is. so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in combination, I think that would be incredible. For those who don't know Vernon Reid's work in Living Colour, I mean, he always appears on the top probably 10 or 20 guitarists of all time. He's just incredible.
Go ahead. Keep going.
I have a little tidbit for you, though, because I want to
Yes.
stretch this segment.
You're doing a hell of a job. Cripes.
So, you know, the Radiohead song Creep.
Yes.
The band hated that song.
Yes.
In the studio, the producer and recording engineer said, "Oh, why don't you guys just play around with that a little bit?" And they turned the recording stuff on. And Johnny Greenwood hated the song so much, he played obnoxious guitar stuff, you know, that.
Yeah. Which is like the thing.
And that made the song. That was their first #1 hit because the band hated it so much.
Well, maybe not because of
I
that.
always
but-
wonder about those kind of stories. Like maybe they said that, but like, I don't know.
It's real.
But that
It's
is
real.
ultimately why we
I read
ended
it on
up
the
getting-
internet.
You couldn't have been in the studio and like listening to the playbacks and that and been like, I hate this song. Like, you had to know like those
Yeah.
chung, 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 when that like you gotta be like, come on, this is
It's
this is
too
a good
perfect.
song.
There's something screwy with this story. Anyways, get us back on track. He's got a plane to catch.
Okay.
Go.
I'm going with option 1.
Good.
Bleh.
Okay. Billy.
Yeah, one. I saw Living Color open for the Stones, 1989 Steel
Whoa.
Wheels tour.
Oh, yeah.
Cincinnati. Man, they sounded amazing.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Radiohead. I mean, you can't beat that.
Yep.
Too true. Too true.
I saw them on the.
I don't know how they would do together though. I'm
Oh, I
very
think-
interested in hearing that.
I think they would be great together.
Okay. Well, let's see. Matt, what are you doing?
I said one, of course.
#1. Okay.
Nothing against the other dudes, but you know, I mean, those two stand out by far to me. So.
We just don't have a metal.
And now I
stoners
kind of
yet.
want it. Now I like literally want to hear that.
Well, you're in luck.
Yes.
Kind of disappointed. Yeah. Oh, shit.
I'm gonna go with Marty Friedman and
I mean,
just
yeah,
had to
it'd
be
be cool.
and
Very
different.
cool.
Lalonde. Because here's the thing, like Friedman's a machine.
Yep.
Like he is a other level precision player, but Lalonde is like he's out there. So that's a really good would you rather actually, because those are two people that there's a little bit of crazy mess and there's like oof, these guys can really bring it.
On a side note, I won't get into it, but he was one of the first articles I read back in the day in Guitar Player magazine. And he said before every tour, because he had this massive pedal collection, he would chain up 20 to 30 pedals. And his whole way of whittling them down for the tours, he would just start getting rid of them. They'd play, didn't use that one, get rid of it, and he would whittle it down to only the essential
This is
ones. that
Vernon
he
Reid?
needed. No. This is Primus.
Lalonde, yeah.
Yeah, that's how he would do it. And I was like, that's a good idea. I've done that before. Anyways.
Yeah, that's a good way to start.
Yeah.
All right, Tony, we need to thank a few people, and then Matt's got a bus to catch.
That is correct, because at this point of the show, there's a special group of people we love to thank. These are our executive producers.
Yes.
Now, an executive producer makes this show possible. How do you become one? Head over to patreon.com/guitar knobs. Check out a couple different levels in which you can participate. Become a friend, a sponsor, a hero
Yes.
of the podcast. Hip, hip, hooray! Hooray! He's our hero. Each level comes with some very nice thank you gifts and opportunities to win special giveaways and such. You know, Todd mentioned earlier, we got some books going out. We got probably some pedals and other stuff going out.
Yep.
Cool stuff. But you got to help us out in order to be.
Or just help us out so we can keep doing the show.
How about that?
Yes.
I like that idea. But there's one thing more in addition to all that
You get
great
to have
stuff.
your name right on the thing.
Your
Go.
name right on the thing. Go.
He's got a boat to catch. Go.
First it was a plane, then it was a bus. Now it's a
Ruined my
boat.
joke, Tony.
Oh, you've just go. This is what I have to put up with. Special thanks to these executive producers: John Sebastian, Trevor Ellenberg, Cameron Pampas, James Bell, Michael Furman, Eric Hemmer, Brett Hogarth, Gregory Randall, Don Kloss, Ralph Gottschalk from Wonderful Audio Technology. What? Rusty Sneeden, Vader and Pedals, John Halverson, Rick Calhoun, Trevor Gunberg, Elad Mizrahi, Richard Kendall, James Pennington, James White, Justin Jones, John Esterly from Rare Buzz Effects, Anthony Lathrop, Stefan Lamb, Michael Senchuk, Ken Sayers, Darren Gregory, and Tom Brazen. Mm-hmm. But wait, Todd, there's more because there's a special group of executive producers. We call them our Grand Poobahs, and they wear a fez upon their head with listening to the podcast and at the same time. So special thanks to these Grand Poobahs: Adam Johnson, Anthony Gemolaro, Billy Spitfire Unlimited to my immediate left, Bob Crouch, Brian Robinson, Cody Foster, David Kaminga, David Tyndall, Enrico Fernando, Fox Hill Studio, Hex Matos, Jack Cadian, James Pennington, John Williams, Jonathan Jerusik from 12th Hour Devices, TikTok, LSJ Music Company, Matt Hart, our poet on staff. Is he still writing poetry for us? Is he writing this section? Michael Van Zant, Michio Murakishi, Moon Guitars, Paul Von Eppinger, Sam Jett, Steve Keys, Tyler Casey Rhines, and Zach Oswald from Brandon Wound Pickups. Oh, and we have a new Grand Poobah.
Yes. Pedro Vasquez.
Pedro Vasquez, welcome aboard. You're in very good company, my friend.
Indeed. Thank you so much. We are so grateful to all of those who are helping out, and we could use your help too. So please give it some consideration and join the lovely league of us. I'm running out of steam. It's getting late over here. We want to say a colossal thank you to Matt Holl of Wren And Cuff for coming on the show again.
Deuce.
Yay.
Yeah, it's great to meet you, Matt.
It's like rethinking my decision. And where can people go find the things that you're doing?
Well, we have a website, believe it or not.
Hey.
And, all the usual social media stuff. Wren And Cuff at Instagram. Didn't I do this already, or was that before you?
Yeah, it's just a good to remind people, you know?
I got you. Yeah, wrenandcuff.com, of course. And, or just Google Wren And Cuff. All over the place. We've been around long enough where it's not hard to find us.
Yes, this is true.
Yeah.
Tony, how about yourself? Where can people find you?
People can find me at pickguardian.com. Check out some of the things that I do over there, which is custom pick guards. If you have a project that you're trying to do, shoot me an email. Let me know what you're trying to do, what you need, what color, and all that fun stuff. And I'll take very good care of you.
All right. Billy?
Yeah, you can check me out on Instagram or Facebook at Billy Spitfire Unlimited.
Perfect. You can shoot me a DM at The Guitar Knobs on Instagram. We would love to hear from you. Share your stories, your thoughts, what you love or hate about the show, and maybe even give us a would you rather, like our friend Bruce Bacon.
Bruce Bacon!
And we just genuinely want to hear from you. Please give a listen to the Valentinos on your way home or whatever you're driving to and from. It's going to make you feel good. And then check out Billy's band, The Mathematics. And in between that, have a fantastic guitar week and subscribe.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Woo!
I was shopping for some literally cool underwear, like cooling underwear.
So I have 2 delays instead of 1 delays.
Fructose.
Sucrose.
Glucose.
Lactose.
To me.
Bring back. Oh, bring back my Bonnie to me.
Little pitchy dog.
They generally don't have flies in them.
Oh.
So
Why is that a problem? Who uses that?
Yeah.
The fly?
Do you use the fly? Clap back in.
Is that MISS? Selenius?
MISSILE.
What?
Missile.
What?
Aeneas.
Okay. Billy's going to think of that. You keep going.
Okay.
Gonna call it. Would you rather?
No, Billy's not going to think of it.
No, Billy won't.
You keep going.
Billy won't. Alphabetical order.
Stop screwing around and get it done.
Stop it. Okay.
Like Captain and Tennille?
No, nothing like
Sonny
Captain
and
and
Cher.
Tennille. Nothing like Captain and Tennille.
Sonny and Cher.
No.
Well, we get a lot of requests. Why don't you guys do video? I'm like, first of all, Tony.
What? More importantly,
Like a deep sea diver. Yeah.
oh, that would be
Yeah.
cool. The deep
With
sea
the helmet? Oh, I would totally do that.
I'm ready. I've been ready.
He's like, sleep comfort. What's it called?
Sleep comfort.
Right. You boneheads.
You have to put a mattress
Damn
on.
idiots. Yeah.
Now, there's a horror show for you.
The other thing you could do.
Shut it.
The other thing you
No.
could do.
Nobody knows it. But when I was down, I was your clown. Right from the start, I gave you my heart.
I'm losing it here, guys.
Give you my heart.
Oh my
That is good. Guys, you have anything you need before we need to get rolling here? Across the
I
table?
got my Red Bull.
You got your Red Bull. I got my pencil. Okay.
I got my orange crush.
And away we go.
Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/theguitarknobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.